hate to see it. This is actually what's happening to one young woman in a town in North Carolina. And I saw this story a few days ago, and it was absolutely devastating to think about it and to realize that this is still what's happening. But this young woman, whose name, let me get her name correct, her name is Angel Pittman. She was that young person. She was a young girl, 21 years old, had saved up her money. She bought an acre, less than an acre of unrestricted land in North Carolina for about $10,000 last September. Then she spent another $24,000 of her hard-earned money that this young sister earned, $14,000 with money she had been saving since 17 years old. She spent $14,000 and bought 3 buses. 3 old school buses that she was excited about. She was going to do exactly what I said. She was going to turn them into these mobile hair salons that she would be able to go around and drive around and provide services for people who are in need. That's exactly the type of thing we want our children doing. I mean, I would be so proud if this were my daughter. I would be thrilled and amazed with the work that she was trying to do, because she clearly loves her people and is motivated to not just talk about it, but she's trying to be about it. She put her money where her mouth is. And she says, I'd never seen anyone driving around doing people's hair, but not only did I want to get paid for doing hair, but I wanted to drive around, do some homeless people's hair, and maybe go to some prisons and help incarcerated people. This is a good sister. She's 21 years old. She's trying to do something for her community. Her plan was to put the buses on her land, less than an acre that she purchased, put the buses on her land, turn one into a living space. So she was going to be self-sufficient. Talk about green energy, right? Green New Deal. She was going to turn one of these buses into a home that she would be able to live in. And then the other 2 were going to be turned into these mobile salons. And she could do hair on her property, set up shop at different locations, do house calls. In fact, Shayla, I'm going to go ahead and drop the article link for this also in the Zoom chat, so you can tweet this out as well so people can see this also, okay? This is her plan. This is what we want in our young people. Unfortunately, Miss Angel Pittman purchased a property in a town that is considered a sundown town, right next to one of the most racist some of my biatches that you could ever did see. This man, who was her neighbor, decided, well, now what do we have here? Is that a negress moving in across my property? And quite frankly, negress is probably the nicest thing that I would imagine this person saying, because this man who lived across the street, not across the street, but on the other side of her property, basically, as she's moving in, he sees her mom and her dad moving her in. He begins going into white nationalist mode. Now, here's the thing that's important. One of the things that we see from the article that describes this in depth is that when she first visited the property, she did feel like something was a little off. She's young. She's 21. We still learning discernment in our 40s. So, I mean, it makes sense that you feel something a little off. You just brush it to the side. But she's young. She felt something was a little off. The neighborhood was predominantly white. Not all white. It's like 17% black. This is a town in Rowan County, North Carolina. It's 79% white, 17% black. And unfortunately, it's a sundown town. She didn't know that. She felt like something was off, but racist people be everywhere. They're always off. So, it makes sense that you would sense it, but not necessarily have the life experience to say, okay, I need to pause before I move forward. During her closing, when she's buying the property, she's closing on the property, there's an older white man who lives across the street who was giving her really weird vibes, but she had no idea just how bad those vibes were going to get. A week after closing, on September 23rd, she returns to drop off the buses on the property. The property is about 8 miles outside of Salisbury. And this time, this elderly white man comes up to them and says, why are you guys here? Are y'all looking for shade? Sun too hot? Need somewhere to rest your black bodies? I'm just curious. I'm just the white neighbor on the other side of the lawn, and I'm wondering what the hell you doing here. That's my imagining of how he must have sounded. Now, basically, the sundown town motto was N-word, don't let the sun go down on you in this town, right? So keep that in mind. Sundown town, 2023 or 2022, when she buys the property, this is her first interaction with this man. Now, one of the things we know from Professor Mellon Sharon, and Mellon Sharon is a professor who does a lot of study and investigation of these types of issues. And he talks about the fact that sundown towns function economically and politically to the benefit of white supremacists. The professor said it's a matter of economic insecurity and rising economic inequality, and the sense that white property values will go down if black people move into the neighborhoods and real estate agents blockbusting and taking advantage of that. Somebody somewhere messed up by showing this little girl the property, because that wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to buy that property in this town. In any event, what we now know is that shortly after she dropped off those buses, that elderly white man across the lawn who wanted to know if they just needed some shade for their black bodies, well, he gets violent. He wasn't too old to get violent. He gets very, very violent. Sits down on the porch of his property while she and her mama are finna drop off the buses with his gun on his lap. He's about to go N-word hunting, is I guess the sense he was trying to give them. And then they realize, basically his energy is kind of like, get off my lawn. And he wanted them to get the buses off his lawn as if the lawn that he was talking about wasn't her property. He felt he had a right to land that she owned because his whiteness trumped the ability for her to purchase land and own it outright. I want you to remember that because white entitlement is a fundamental part of how sundown towns operate. Next thing you know, her buses are vandalized. Windows busted out, racial slurs painted on the side of it. The man now, the next time she comes, he's got the stars and the bars hanging a while. He's got the big old Confederate flags. He's got swastikas. He's got KKK signs all over the place. He's like, oh no, N-word. Oh no, I don't know who sold you this here property, but let me tell you, you ain't gonna stay. Not comfortably, not on my watch. And she calls the police because that's what you do. That's what you call. You call the police. You call, I mean, who else are you supposed to call? You're in a sundown town that you don't know is a sundown town. She calls the police thinking that, okay, we're not at a Black Lives Matter protest. I'm imagining she's thinking this. I'm not protesting. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm going to call the police and report what's happening. This is my property. And this man is trying to force me off of it because he claims it as his. Because his whiteness trumps the fact that she paid the money for it. His whiteness trumps the fact that she was the lawful possessor of the land. His whiteness trumped all of the things. And she calls the police, who did ding, 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 surprising no one, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. They were like, yeah, we don't understand what the problem is. Apparently there was some vandalism. Don't know who it was. Can't really tell. I'm actually reminded in this moment of those ranchers that we talked about a few weeks ago who are out in Colorado dealing with the same thing. Purchase land, farming the land. They got white neighbors who are angry that they have the right to that land, vandalizing their property, blowing out their security cameras, slaughtering their animals. This is not an isolated incident. This is the mood of the nation. This is the mood of, let me qualify. This is the mood of white nationalists in the nation. They are reverting back to what they always do. Let's move on. I want to get to the calls in just a second. 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK. Want to know how many of y'all live near or around a sundown town? How do your actions change when you know you driving through a sundown town? What should we be aware of, those of us who live up north? And I shouldn't even say that. Let me not even joke because we got sundown towns up north. We got sundown towns up north, upstate New York, as a matter of fact. Let me not even joke like that because I don't want to give the presumption that this is only something that happens in Southern America. They call the police do nothing. And she's basically at the point now where her parents refuse to let her go back. Good on them because she got a mama and a daddy. Okay, so her daddy's like, oh, hell no, you ain't going back there. But now she's got this property that she can't use. She's got buses that she has to haul from where they're at to where she actually does live in another part of North Carolina. And here's the thing. Here's the thing about sundown towns and this type of action. 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK. Here's the thing that's important. I talk a lot about Wilmington, North Carolina, one of the first successful post-Civil War coup d'etats that took place. And in Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898, I've talked about this a lot. We know that after the black folks and the poor white folks who were in collaboration with the white folks, after they organized and successfully got black people and white folks who were allies of black people into office, they had a fusion integration effort. They were living in an integrated North Carolina and Wilmington. They had a fusion approach to politics and they were like doing the damn thing. They were getting people elected. They were getting people in the mayoralty. They were getting people in the state house. They were sending people to Congress. And this was on the strength of an integrated Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898, until the white nationalists said, hell no, this ain't happening anymore. And those white nationalists came into town. They came into town with their armed weapons. They had 200 of them, women, men, and children. Gotta say that because y'all like to pretend it's only the white men who do this type of thing. It was men, women, and children. Come into town in 1898, North Carolina, drive the black people out of town. And these were black people who had wealth. This is like another Tulsa, basically. Drive them out of town, force every single one of the elected officials who had been installed into office to resign, drove them out of town. The people who voted for them got driven out of town on pain of death. Because if you didn't leave, they were quite willing to, quote, choke the river with the bodies of the black.